Welcome in. It's Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, we'll catch you up to speed on the latest Seahawks news and rumors, as we have plenty to talk about today, in particular on the NFL draft, as well as some roster updates that we will get to all in just a matter of moments. Before we do, folks, we are closing in on 36,500 subscribers here on the channel, about 173 away, but we need your help to get there. So, all the 12s out there, if you want more news and rumors, if you want to be a part of our live shows on Wednesdays when breaking news happens, you'll be the first to know if you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Best part of all, does not cost you a thing. You can subscribe for free today, youtube.com/SeahawksTV to subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll get started with today's show. Quandre Diggs, I got to tell you, Quandre, I've always been a big fan of his, dating back to his college days too. And he is kind of the star of the offseason for the Seahawks. He has been a must-follow on social media, and most recently was on Richard Sherman's podcast. We'll show you what he had to say here in just a second, as he had plenty to talk about when it was about the Seahawks' future and everything. And he made it clear that with that number 5 pick that the Seahawks have, that he wants the Seahawks to draft not Jalen Carter, not a quarterback, but Will Anderson Jr., the star edge rusher from Alabama, with the selection. So let's go at this piece by piece of what Quandre Diggs had to say and what Richard Sherman had to say as well. Remember, Sherman worked with Tariq Woolen, and we saw how well that worked out for the Seahawks and how ready Tariq Woolen was day one. So Sherman knows a thing or two as well. Here's more from Diggs. What I hope they get 4 straight quarterbacks, meaning with the first 4 picks, and we get Buddy from Bama. Buddy, by the way, just to clarify, for those who don't know, that is Will Anderson Jr. He is referring to as Buddy. So it's an interesting situation that we're seeing Diggs talk about here, because think about this. If someone trades up to 3, where Arizona picks, then there's a pretty decent chance that the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft go 1, 2, 3, 4. Stroud, Young, Levis, Richardson, whatever order it is, that those 4 quarterbacks go one by one with those first 4 picks if Arizona trades down. And then if you're Seattle, you're in a great spot at that point. Then you get the choice, Anderson or Carter. Now, if Arizona stays at 3, then it sounds like they're likely to go Will Anderson, so Jalen Carter would be the de facto choice. But if for whatever reason, if somebody decides to trade up, then all of a sudden you have whatever you want when it comes to the best defensive player in the draft, whichever way you're feeling. Now, here's what Richard Sherman had to say on Jalen Carter. Listen to this. Seahawks got it crazy. If the boy from Bama ain't there, that boy from Georgia is. They're going to be sitting there like, he did that? Damn, man. With that number 5 pick, the Seattle Seahawks pick out of Georgia, defensive tackle Jalen Carter. I'd take him, Quandre Diggs says. He'd get in tip-toe shape. He'd get around Bobby and come around Cliff, keep coming around. You get the right people around him, and he'll learn. It'd be a great fit. So, Quandre Diggs, Will Anderson is his number 1 choice, but he likes Jalen Carter too. So, I love just hearing what these guys had to say about these young guys coming into the draft. Now, I'll say this. I don't think you can go wrong with either player. If you're Seattle, if you pick Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, I think both guys are going to be stars in the National Football League. They were both terrific in the SEC the last couple of seasons. But for what the Seahawks are looking for at this point in time, I think Jalen Carter is just a slightly better fit. You got your edge rusher already in Draymond Jones. Okay, now I'm not saying you can't use Will Anderson. You would still be able to use him. But at this moment, defensive tackle is a bigger need than the edge rusher spot. That's why I lean towards Jalen Carter at this moment. But I think you'd be great with either player. You look at the statistics last year, and Jalen Carter took on a lot of double teams throughout the season, still managed 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 7 tackles for loss. Those numbers don't tell the whole story. Will Anderson, this was somebody that was considered to have a down year, but was still great this past season with 10 sacks, 17 tackles for loss. Will Anderson was terrific. I think both guys are going to have very good futures in the National Football League, and I don't think the Seahawks could go wrong with either decision personally. If you had to pick one to draft, though, who would it be? Would you go with Jalen Carter or would you go with Will Anderson? What would be your choice? Let me know in the comment section. Type J for Jalen Carter. Type W for Will Anderson. Which way would you lean towards? Carter or Anderson? J for Jalen Carter. W for Will Anderson. Let me know. It's our pinned comment today. Tell me in the comment section which way you're feeling. Now, that's not the only first-round pick the Seahawks have. Remember, they have the 20th selection as well. And Pro Football Network reports that the Seahawks are considering drafting at the center position with this pick. Now, think about this. What have we looked at over the last several weeks when it comes to this position of what we have talked about here on the channel? Of the rumors that have been out there and the speculation, it's been about the edge rusher position, the defensive tackle position, heck, even the wide receiver position potentially, or maybe even a quarterback with Hendon Hooker. That's come up. The center position is one that is kind of a new thing of sorts. The projections out there from the mock draft experts and all of them have pointed towards Seattle going center second or third round. So this is a new development of sorts, and there's an interesting kind of twist to this that I'll show you here in just a second. Before we do, today's show is presented by Z-Biotics. Let's face it, after y'all hit me with a bunch of super chats, I don't bounce back well the next day. That is until I found Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut, where you need it most. Drink Z-Biotics before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Give Z-Biotics a try for yourself. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports to get 15% off your first order when you use code CHATSPORTS at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code CHATSPORTS at checkout for 15% off. Big thanks to Z-Biotics for sponsoring today's video. We certainly appreciate it. All right, so let's go to what Pro Football Network had to say on this. Listen to this, folks. Hall of Famer Steve Hutchinson, now an offensive line consultant for the Seahawks, met with Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin earlier this week as Seattle debates which center grades higher, the Wisconsin junior or Schmitz. That's John Michael Schmitz, by the way, from Minnesota. Tippmann could be the Seahawks selection at 20, the same pick the Lions used to select Ragnow in 2018. Seattle would also look to trade down from 20 with the hopes Tippmann or Schmitz are available later. I'm told discussions are already taking place to move that selection. If they're able to trade down from pick 20, Schmitz could be their guy if he happens to be available to Seattle at pick 37. It would be manna from heaven for the franchise. So here's what I think about as far as 20 or even moving down a little bit for Seattle. Now, 37 would be more than ideal. But before you get too upset about taking a center at 20 or within the first round, look at recent history. The centers that were taken, the first center off the board in the last two drafts. Last year in 2022, Tyler Linderbaum was the first center taken by the Baltimore Ravens, and they were very pleased with what Tyler Linderbaum did this past year for Baltimore. You go back a year prior, Creed Humphrey was the first center taken off the board by the Kansas City Chiefs, second rounder, and he has been arguably the best center in the National Football League. He has been spectacular for the Chiefs, and they have had no regrets. And if the draft were over again, I think those last two drafts, Creed Humphrey would have gone much higher, and even Tyler Linderbaum would have gone much higher if we were to redo those drafts. And so with that said, if the Seahawks find, whether it's Tippmann here or whether it's John Michael Schmitz, if they feel like that those guys are of quality, of an impact, and continue the trend that we've seen from the recent centers that come out, then absolutely, it's fine to use the 20th pick or trade down and still be in the first round to get one of those centers there. Look at the numbers from Tippmann. Let's start there. 2022, his run grade was a 78.3 from Pro Football Focus. Only allowed 1 sack, 2 hits, and 2 hurries. He was really good. Now, comparably speaking, John Michael Schmitz, look at this. The run grade he put together, and remember, these guys are in the same conference in the Big Ten and everything. His run grade was 92.4 with 5 hurries allowed, 1 hit, and 2 sacks. Both are very good players. I think Kansas City would be happy to have either guy. So let me ask you this. Should the Seahawks draft a center in the first round? Should it be one of these two guys? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. Y for yes, in for no. What do you think about the idea of Seattle going center in the first round? Tell me in the comment section. Y for yes, in for no. Couple notes before we get out of here today. Let's tell you about some roster updates. Tanner Muse is joining the Pittsburgh Steelers after spending the last 3 seasons in Seattle with the Seahawks and got a decent amount of playing time there. But with the changes the Seahawks have made at the linebacker spot with bringing in Bobby Wagner and Devin Bush, there really wasn't a place for Tanner Muse at this point. Here's more from Tom Pelissero, the favorite guy of Big Tex, by the way. He said, tweeting this out, standout special teamer and linebacker Tanner Muse plans to sign with the Steelers per source. A one-time third-round pick by the Raiders. Muse played in every game last season for Seattle. Another update, Easop Winston, the wide receiver, he's been waived by the Seahawks and will enter free agency, and they move on from him. And the Seahawks, of course, still looking at other options at the receiver spot. We mentioned possibly drafting a receiver within those first couple of rounds there. So, before we get out of here, speaking of roster updates, Seahawks roster's changed a lot already, and we haven't even gotten to the draft yet, which is just, about a week and a half away. They got 10 picks. Going to take some more changes here. What do you think of the Seahawks roster so far this offseason? Grade it for me, A, B, C, D, or F in the comments section. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there. I'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today.